Good evening and welcome to the Decatur Lifelong Living Community Advisory Board's third Thursday series. This one is Homestead Exemptions and how they will be appearing on the November 8th ballot. This session is presented by the Decatur Lifelong Living Communities Advisory Board, Taxation and Affordability Committee, and it's a part of the third Thursday series of sessions that focus on topics affecting City of Decatur residents. My name is Maria Pinkleton, and I am on the Lifelong Living Community Advisory Board as well as the Communication Committee. And I serve, it's a pleasure for me to be here. I enjoy serving on the board. Tonight we have with us City of Decatur School Superintendent Dr. David Duty, City of Decatur Manager Peggy Merriss, and our schools board chair, Ann Kayola, to answer questions concerning the homestead exemptions that are going to be on this fall's ballot. If you have questions for members of the panel, we ask that you write them on the note cards. If anybody needs a note card, a volunteer will come by to hand one to you. On the note card, don't forget to write your name and the neighborhood that you live in along with your question. We will try to hit on every topic. If you've asked or asking a question and the person in front of you just may have asked that question, your question may not be asked. So, to keep track of time and to keep time in consideration, we will try to keep with one question per topic. Does anyone need a card or a pen? They are available as needed. And if a question is answered and you have a follow-up question, raise your hand and someone will bring you another card. At this time, I'd like for our panel members to introduce themselves. We can start with you, Annie.
Hi, I'm Annie Kayola. I'm the chair of the school board, and I want to recognize my other co-board members who are here. Garrett Goebel, who's our vice chair, and Lewis Jones is back there. Lewis, you should be up here. And I also see our city commissioner, Tony Powers, back there as well. I don't know if I saw any other commissioners. There's Tony. Okay, I'm glad that you're here. And wanted to thank you guys for coming out. It's good to see a full house, and I recognize a lot of you from school board meetings and other forums that we've had really over probably the past almost a year, if not more than a year, on this topic since we first started discussing senior exemptions and trying to get the resolution passed at the state level, which we were able to do during the last legislative session with a lot of y'all's help. So thank you guys for coming out, and look forward to answering your questions. And also wanted to thank the Decatur Lifelong Community Advisory Board for hosting and facilitating this great event. I think it's so important that that we do these types of things and answer y'all's questions so that when election day comes, you feel informed to cast your vote in the way that is best for you. So I'll turn this over now to introduce himself, our fabulous superintendent, Dr. David Duty.
I should have known we should always have Andy go last because she's doing a really good job with speaking. So, I'm David Duty, superintendent. I am just wrapping up my first year here at City Schools of Decatur. I was realizing earlier today I actually moved here on Halloween Day last year is when I drove down from Iowa. So the senior exemption has been something that's been on my radar since right from the start, from when I first got here, and something that I've been working on with the school board. So I hope we can answer any questions that you have about that tonight. I do want to mention too that board member Tasha White wanted to be here, but she fell ill this afternoon, and so she's not able to join us tonight. But she wanted to be here as well, and I'm sure she'll listen to the recording as well. So thank you for having us.
I'm Peggy Merriss. I'm the city manager for the city of Decatur. And also want to acknowledge that Commissioner Smith is here. Commissioner Scott Drake is going to get here. He's transferring children between children's activities. Mayor Garrett and Mayor Pro Tem Boykin and Commissioner Smith are all out of town with professional and family matters that had already been planned before this date was picked. So they can't be here tonight. And as everyone said, thankful to the advisory committee for putting this together, and We will hopefully provide some information for you tonight that will be helpful, and certainly try to answer questions if we can. We'll do our very best. Again, thank you for being here tonight as well.
Thank you all. We would like to start off with actually Peggy discussing the 4 homestead exemptions that residents will find on the ballot.
Okay, and I'm going to stand up because I can't see the back row. Everyone should have had in their chair a piece of paper, black and red, nice little boxes. I'm going to start on the page on the side that has 2. Just 2 on them. They're kind of in numerical order. And there are 4 boxes that relate to the portion of your tax bill that has the City of Decatur's general fund. So the general fund is our basic maintenance and operations for the city. But these exemptions will also apply to the capital improvement fund. So we collect money just for capital improvements, and to the Downtown Development Authority fund. So these 4, the next 4 things I'm going to talk about apply to the kind of City of Decatur side of the ledger. Okay? Pretty straightforward. The first one is we currently have in existence a general homestead exemption of $20,000. So if you have a $400,000 house, 200 it's assessed at fair market value 400. It's assessed at 200. You would subtract 20,000 from that, and then you're taxed on that 180. So that's how a homestead exemption basically works. It reduces the amount of money, value of your home that you're paying taxes on. So you currently, anyone who's in an owner-occupied home should have that one already at $20,000. The very first one increases that 20,000 to 25. It's just increasing. So now you would, instead of taking 20 out of 200,000, you'd take 25 and you'd have 175,000. The second one is really wordy. We don't write these things. There are people that the General Assembly pay a lot of money to write these in a way that hopefully you'll never understand. But unfortunately, when they say, we're going to write it this way, and this is the only way it will get passed, our job is to say, okay. So I hope it's a little wordy. But if you look on the box, the first paragraph is really one that already exists and it's not changing. Okay, so just can pretty much just not pay attention to that first paragraph. If you go down to the italicized paragraph, this is what is changing. Okay, so if you're over 65 and you're in an owner-occupied house now, you get a whopping $1,000 homestead exemption. You just get that for being 65. So what this ballot initiative does is it increases that 1,000 to 10,000. It's the one that already exists. We're just increasing the amount of money. So now you can deduct another 10,000 of value. So now that 175 is 165 because they stack, right? So they add on. They are cumulative, not just, I want to pick one and stick with them. You get the cumulative effect. So both of these on the front already exist. We're just increasing the amounts on the city bill. Now, the third one, Senate Bill 341. So back in 2001, when we changed the general homestead exemption from 10 to 20,000, somehow the old one at 10,000 never got taken off the state books. So the lawyer said, you realize you have this one for 10,000. I said, well, yeah, but it's now 20. And he's like, we don't care. We want it off the books. And so it means it's just cleaning stuff up because we've actually got rid of that one 16-something years ago. But the state didn't get rid of it. So now we're helping the state to get rid of this exemption. It has no bearing. The fourth one is the only new kind of category of an exemption. And so what it does is it provides an additional $15,000. So now that number's going down, right? It's going down to 165. It can go down to 150. For owner-occupied homes, if you are 62 or older, not just for 62, for 62 or older, and you have income that does not exceed $50,000. Okay? So then you get to add that one on. This one is a new one. So this is the only one that if it passes, that folks who qualify for it will have to come fill out a new form for it. All the other ones, if you already qualified for it, our computers, if they're adopted, will just raise those amounts, and you don't have to worry about it. This last one, if you qualify, 62 or older, own your home, less than $50,000 of income, you will have to come fill out a form. You'll have to bring ID. You'll have to bring financial information. So those are the four that apply to the city side of the ledger. Two existings that are getting more, one that went away 16 years ago, and one that is a new one that will add a $15,000 for people 62 and older with less than $50,000 of income.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, Dr. Duty, we'll have you review the proposed homestead exemption.
All right, thank you. So the city was kind enough to put our homestead exemption on their sheet as well. So if you go to that very bottom one on the side with the three boxes, you'll see the City Schools of Decatur Senior Homestead Exemption right there. Okay, so this exemption, much like the ones that Ms. Merriss just described, hers apply to the city taxes, ours apply to the school district taxes. And so right now we assess at 18.66 mils for City of Schools of Decatur taxes. This would relieve the homeowner 65 and older of that entire amount for the city schools piece. As you'll see in the red print down in there at the bottom, the clarification that is impact school taxes, not city taxes or taxes associated with payment of the debt for general obligation bonds. So you may remember that on November 2nd or 3rd, whatever that Tuesday was last year, the GO bond passed for the school district. This exemption does not apply to the payments for that come out of taxes. It applies to the 18.66 mil assessed value, and it's for any homeowner age 65 or over.
Okay, with that being said, I will begin reading some of the submitted questions. If you guys have any questions from their summaries of the exemption items, please, yes.
I have just a general question. Put it on a card and write it to us.
If you can write, if you need another card, if someone asks a question and you have a subsequent question, remember, raise your hand and someone will bring a card to you. The first question I will ask is from Stephen Thompson of Clarion Avenue. If one spouse is less than 62 years old and the other is older than 62, can they qualify for the homestead exemption? The mortgage is in both names.
My understanding is that it's once one qualifies, it qualifies for the home. So if someone's 62 and someone's 61, or someone's 62 and someone's 28, whatever, no judging here. The 62 or the 65 is what qualifies. Now for household income, it's everybody in the household, right? So if it's a 62-year-old and a 61-year-old, and you have a child who's moved back in who's also like helping with the household, that child's income counts as well. So it's the income that's received in the entire house.
The next question is from Carolyn Kowalski. I think I'm pronouncing the last name correctly, from Swanton Hill. She wants to know what constitutes income.
So I think, is that on? I don't know if that was on this one. Generally, it's for most of it, it's all source income. So it's your Social Security, it's your retirement, it's your pension, it's the interest you got off that great 401k that you earned. So it's income from all sources. So we look at your adjusted gross income on your last federal tax return.
The next question, won't exempting 65 and over without regard to income mean a large raise for younger families? Won't any standard increase in exemptions just mean the city will have to raise taxes to make up for the decrease in taxes?
Start with that one. Can I see it? So
Yeah,
I just make sure I answer all of the question. Okay, won't exempt at this time, the school board does not intend to raise the mill in order to cover the cost of the exemption. Having said that, every year we have to look at the budget, and there may be different expenses that come into play that sometimes we don't anticipate. But our hope is that we don't have to raise the mill because, one, the overall tax digest is increasing. And so, in fact, in past years, we've been lowering the mill in response to the increase in the tax digest. And we believe that will continue to happen, probably not at the rate that it has happened over the last 2 or 3 years, but we think it's still increasing. In addition, the state has reduced the austerity cuts that it has given to school systems, so we expect to be getting more money from the state, which will also help to offset the cost of the exemption. And I feel like there was one other point that I'm forgetting on.
Get more money with enrollment growth.
Oh, right. So with enrollment growth, the state gives us so much money per pupil, and given that our enrollment is increasing, we anticipate getting more money from the state to reflect our increase in enrollment. So, I can't stand up here and promise that the mill won't go up, but we do not believe at this time that we will have to increase the mill to cover the cost of the exemption. Having said that too, we have a kind of estimated handle on what we think the exemption will cost, but there's really no way to tell exactly how much it's going to cost until if and when it gets passed and you see how many people register for it and what the ultimate impact of it is. That's one of the reasons why there's a 5-year sunset on the school's tax exemption, so that we can absorb what the impact is and study it and respond if necessary over the course of the next 5 years. So no, I don't believe that the exemption will result in a large increase in taxes for younger families. And then the second question, won't any standard increase in exemptions just mean the city will have to raise taxes to make up for the decrease in taxes? I think that's kind of a similar way of asking the same question. So the answer, like I said, is no. I do not anticipate that we'll have to raise the mill to cover the cost of the exemption.
And so on the city side, because some of these are just increasing, we already know the number. So we know the number, we know what the value of the increase is. All three of the changes amount to about $500,000. We've already incorporated that into the budget we're already in, and the city commission were able to lower the millage actually for this year. So again, I don't think any of us can predict the future in terms of, will your millage ever have to go up or go down? Right now, whatever adjustments would need to be made in the future for the city won't be because of the homestead exemption. We've already taken care of that. But other things can happen. So 5 years from now, if they pass, I don't want someone to say, you promised me my taxes would never go up. So I just didn't do that. But in terms of these particular exemptions, we've already covered them in our budget, and we're fine.
And I thought of one other thing I want to add, because Lewis is good at reminding me of this. And so on that point, before I move on, Lewis and Garrett, if you guys think of something that I'm not saying, just stand up and pipe in. So I don't want to be, as Lewis says sometimes, I don't want to be cute about it and suggest that there's no impact on our budget as a result of this, because I think certainly somebody could say, well, if you weren't doing this exemption, then couldn't you lower the mill for everybody? And I think certainly you could make that argument. One of the reasons why, however, we're doing this is not only to help seniors age in place, but also to slow the enrollment growth that the city of Decatur is experiencing. And so we have found that when seniors move out, families with young children move in. And when they move in with their 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 children, it actually ends up costing the school system more money than what we would be giving up on their senior tax exemption. So I think the argument could certainly be made that if we weren't doing the exemption, we may end up actually having to raise the mill to cover the cost of the additional families that are moving in. Because although I said earlier that we get some additional funding from the state per pupil, what we get from the state is not enough to cover what it costs to educate each student. So there's that balance to it as well.
I'd just follow up on what Ms. Keola was just saying. If you haven't seen it already, we have some materials on our website that explain that last piece right up here at the top, where it shows how for an average home, our per pupil expenditures for one child are about $11,806. Of the taxes for that average home, we bring in, the local portion is about $7,084, but then the state chips in $4,722. And so that means that first child isn't even completely covered by the taxes from that house. So if they come in with 3 children, which is what we frequently see now, families with 2 and 3 and more kids, then in this scenario right here, you have about $17,000 of costs that are then covered by the other taxpayers within the community to cover the cost of our local share of that portion. So if you want to see some examples, there's some of those on our website as well. Including commercial tax, yes, thank you. The full property tax base.
Matthew Baird from Oakhurst asked, do the exemptions apply for residents over 65 but who still have school-age children at the residence?
Yes. For the school district ones, yes.
Okay. And for the city ones, it's age 65.
On the sheets that actually list the different items that we'll be voting on, there is a line at the bottom in black that says fiscal impact to City of Decatur. And Peg Geronimo asks, the fiscal impact to the city's the fiscal impact to City of Decatur school amounts. Please explain what this means and how the figures were arrived at.
Sure. You want me to take this one?
Sure.
So here's another piece of information we have on our website that you are welcome to pull up, but I'll kind of talk you through it right now. Basically what we did is we looked at the tax digest since 2007, and the purpose of that was looking at the growth of how has the tax digest changed over time, the total value. And then we looked at the actual parcels in the tax digest and which ones already had the senior exemption applied to them. And we looked at the value of all of those homes, and it added up to $142 million assessed value, and it was 1,027 homes. And so that, we calculated the average home was $138,370 assessed value for a senior based on who was already taking the exemptions. We then took that amount and we multiplied it by our 18.66 mill rate to come up with what the total homestead exemption would be once that amount is forgiven if this were to pass. And that was $2.65 million. But some of our seniors already get exemptions. And so that was overestimating the impact because we already have about $1.5 million in senior exemptions. So if you take out those exemptions that they're already getting in your estimate, the increase is of $1.15 million. Now that's in 2016 dollars. So what we did is we used this information up here regarding the growth and what we've seen in the growth of the tax digest to project out what it would look like for the 5 years of growth. And the average of that is $1.23 million. So that's where that average, or where that number comes from.
Barry Rhodes from Pine Tree Drive wants to know who decides after the 5 years whether to stop the exemptions. Will it be a board vote or a popular vote?
So the exemptions will automatically sunset or expire in 5 years. So it won't. You won't vote on whether or not to terminate them. What we will have to do is vote on whether or not to extend them. And so over the next, before 5 years, shorter than 5 years, probably over the next 3 years, we're going to really be studying what the impact is and then start making decisions about whether or not we go we try to renew it as it's currently stated, or if we need to make any adjustments to it in order to continue it, in order to serve the needs of the community, we'll do that. So we'll have to take affirmative action prior to the expiration of 5 years in order to continue it.
Would that be the board?
Oh, can you follow it up?
Well, it was my question.
That would be the school board going through, as I understand it, going through the same practice that we went through to get this on the ballot in the first place. So we would kind of repeat what we've done in terms of going to the state legislature to get it on the ballot and then put it back to the voters again in 5 years.
Joy Martin from Decatur Heights asks, please explain the school's justification for supporting the school tax exemption.
I think I kind of already did that. Do you guys feel like I need to answer that again? Okay.
Why are these exemptions good for our city? And that's from Sarah Human in Winona Park.
Do you want to start with that?
Sure. Well, from the city commission, the city ones, the city commissioners felt like because of the raise, or the increasing values of property, that particularly for folks who may be on more of a limited or fixed income, that the increases in those values were exceeding kind of the potential for increases in income. And they felt like making these adjustments, one, we had the resources financially, we had the financial resources to be able to do it. And two, we felt like the homeowners, the residential homeowners, because of that kind of escalating value, this was a way we could attack the value piece versus the millage piece. If you reduce the millage, you reduce it for every property, including commercial property. And we haven't seen the increase in commercial values at the exponential kind of rate we've seen for residential property. So the city commission's part was they felt like residential property was growing at a faster rate. We needed to recognize that to some level. We had the resources to be able to do it. So it seemed like a good thing to put out to the voters for their consideration.
And I would just add from the school's perspective, it was two-prong. One is we are trying to affirmatively slow down our enrollment growth, and we see this as one way to do that. As I mentioned before, with seniors moving out, young families with children move in, and right now we're really struggling to keep up and build facilities fast enough to accommodate all of our children. So one of the purposes is to try to slow enrollment growth. And then the second is to just help seniors age in place. And we think it's important for our entire community to have a diverse community and a balanced population. And we don't want for our property taxes to be driving seniors out of our city.
How much school taxes will the 3 new apartment developments in downtown Decatur pay? And they are referring to the Arlo, the Alexan, and Place on Ponce. And this is Donna Bohannon from Ponce de Leon Court.
I don't know value on those. Do you know them?
I mean, I do not have, sorry, I wasn't prepared to talk about that, but if Maria will, or Leanne, if you'll get that question, we can do, I mean, I have an estimation that we can do, and we can just get it back. I'm sorry, I can't.
It depends on the value of the
Yeah,
property.
it depends on the value, and I don't know those values today right off the top of my head. So I apologize, I wasn't prepared to answer that, but we can definitely get you an answer.
One has to apply for this exemption. Why wasn't this made clear in all the blog, press, and other coverage? That's from Carolyn Kowalski from Swanton Hill.
I don't know why it wasn't made. I mean, I can't speak to what gets covered in social media or in print media, but I do think that's how any senior exemption works, is that you have to register for it to prove that you're entitled to get it. Otherwise, we don't have the data, I think, immediately available to us in order to offer the exemption that you'd otherwise be qualified for. So it's just a matter of really just signing up for it and showing that you're eligible so that you can reap the benefit of it.
And Ms. wasn't there some discussion about people who may not want it, right? So
that's true.
if you automatically did it, there may be people who don't want it know who they are, but I think there was some
Right.
discussion about folks saying they wanted to continue to pay the school taxes, so.
Why does this provide a full exemption for education for residents older than 65 years? Other exemptions have caps, such as income limits. Shouldn't this one have a similar exemption, such as value of property or income limits? And that's from Sherry Wallace, Ponce de Leon Heights.
Like I said, one of the primary purposes of the exemption for the school system is to slow enrollment growth. And we believe that there are some seniors who are moving out of the city because of the taxes, even though they can afford it. The taxes are still very high, and we don't want to lose seniors of all income levels. I mean, we want all seniors to be able to stay in Decatur and not leave because of what the property taxes are, regardless of what their income is. Because, like I said, even if you're a wealthy senior who's living in an expensive house, if they move out and a young family with children moves in, that ends up costing the school system more. So it's not, there's certainly part of it that is about not driving out seniors who can't afford it, but the other part of it is keeping even those wealthy seniors in their homes in order to accomplish the goal of slowing our enrollment trends.
And this is on the similar note, question from Paul Wagner, Great Lakes. Why should seniors not pay taxes to support schools? Why not make the reduction in school taxes dependent on income?
Well, I think I just answered that question.
Catherine Carter, Winona Park. Most people here tonight are older. My concern is that younger taxpayers who are not here may choose to vote against the exemptions, believing that they will be negatively impacted by the exemptions from older citizens. Do you guys think that will be the case, or you have heard anything that would make you believe
Traditionally,
possibility?
homestead exemptions pass because everybody thinks they're wonderful. Young people, old people, because even young people think they're going to be old people one day. I'm not being seriously, or they have old people in their families, and so traditionally homestead exemptions on a ballot are generally almost always successful. Why any one individual person might vote yes or no for it, certainly that could be an argument that someone would like to make. But again, traditionally, they are very popular with taxpayers of all ranges.
And I hope that people who aren't here this evening, that they'll go onto our website and review the information so that they can make an informed decision. And these issues are complicated, and I think it's important to do your homework and read up on it, because it's not just a matter of shouldn't everybody pay their taxes. It's just more complicated than that. There are people who are moving out of Decatur and young families moving in very, very quickly, and that's having a very real impact on the school system. And so I think that the exemption as it's designed, at least for the school system, we hope will slow that down. And so I encourage you guys to tell your friends and of all age ranges to go onto our website and review the information so that they're informed before they vote.
Was a tax deferral an option, as an option ever considered, versus an exemption? And that's from Kendall Hamilton from Ponce de Leon Heights.
The city there's actually is a tax deferral program for any, oh, wait a minute, before I say that. There is a tax deferral program. I don't believe it has an age, but it's been a while since I've looked at it, and it applies to all city taxes, including the school system's taxes. And there's an application, and we're glad to work with people. And basically, they accumulate over time, and when your house is sold, the taxes are reimbursed. We don't have a lot of people that generally will take advantage of it, but for those who are interested in deferral versus, and there are a lot of reasons people don't like deferrals. People don't trust the government. They don't want the government to be able to get their mom's house. So So it has not been one that lots of taxpayers, even when it was to their advantage, have been willing to sign on the dotted line for.
The next question is also from Kendall Hamilton. Are all homes with seniors taking the current tax exemptions? Meaning, could there be more than the 1,000 plus homes currently taking the senior exemptions that would be eligible for the new exemption?
Yeah, so our counts in that description are based on who's currently taking the exemption, and we don't have a way to know unless somebody is registered for an exemption how old they are. And so the answer is there could be seniors out there. Hopefully seniors who qualify for an exemption would have registered for that exemption, so they wouldn't be paying those taxes. But that's one of the reasons for the 5-year sunset, I think, as well, is if there's this huge population of seniors out there that weren't registering for exemptions, that 5-year sunset allows the school board to reanalyze the data and the impact and make a new decision on how to move forward if that is to happen. But I think it would require, or I know it would require folks who are living here to have not applied for an exemption that they qualify for. And I think in general, that's fairly unusual. So.
The final question, why wasn't this written so as to include income graduated levels so those who could would be assessed a fair amount? From Carolyn Kowalski in Swanton Hill.
I think that
Yeah,
it's
I think
the same
it's-
answer
yeah,
as
yes,
before
answer
with
that.
the income limitation.
Did you all want to cover on any points where the questions weren't asked this evening?
I guess one thing I would address, which is in the third piece of information that we have, some folks have asked, when does this actually kick in? So if this passes on the November ballot, it would kick in with the January 2017 tax assessment. So it would be practically immediate for when it starts.
So if it would, bills for the first installment payment go out generally April the 1st. I know, I hear the irony. I get it. But, so you will have the period really between the end of November 9th, really until probably about mid-March for any of the new ones, if they're adopted to sign up for. Some of them will automatically increase, and when those amounts increase and you're already getting the exemption, that's just a computer thing. So there will be a period, and we've already talked certainly to our revenue staff and our tax staff about making sure we do everything we can to get the information out. Then if you miss the date and you do it later, it gets trued up in that second installment bill. Those go out. You may already be getting them in your mail right now, so they should be going out this week. But it will start with 2017.
The other thing I'd say is if you haven't already seen it, you can go to decaturga.com/homestead, and the city has homestead information on their website. If you go to the city schools website at csdecatur.net and click on the link to the board, that's where you can find these 3 documents so you can review those further as well.
So, I mean, the only other thing I would add is that in the ballot, the sample ballot is on 4 huge poster foam boards back there. The ballot that you're going to get's got a lot of stuff on it. It's got constitutional amendments from the state of Georgia. It's got DeKalb County stuff for DeKalb County. It's got the city's homestead exemptions, in addition to all of the people running for stuff. So the voter registration, Board of Voter Registration for DeKalb County has a sample ballot. I would strongly suggest before you get to the polling place, you might want to start reading some of these things. Otherwise, you may be at your polling place for a good long time. And there's lots of information. There's a fair amount of information out on other resources about the state stuff and about the county stuff. And hopefully there's a fair number of places you get information for the city stuff. But it is going to be a long ballot. So I would really encourage you to look at your sample ballot, particularly all of these amendments and homestead exemptions and things, because they are wordy.
If anyone is interested in applying for the age and income-based exemptions, applications are taken at City Hall Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And for the age-based exemptions, you must be the age specified as of January 1 of the tax year. And homestead exemption applications are accepted year-round. However, to grant an exemption to a current tax year, your application must be received no later than April 1. However, please note that although we can accept homestead exemptions until April 1, we encourage eligible homeowners to apply for any exemptions prior to March 15th, so we can ensure your exemption appears on your first installment tax bill. Applications received after April 1 will be processed for the following tax year. And there are people at City Hall that will help you with any questions you may have on any of the exemptions that you want to apply for.
And this,
And she's going to have these at the door in case anybody wants the information that I read off to you. If you guys didn't have any further comments or points you wanted to make, thank you very much for being here and answering questions this evening. And thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you. 5.